Ah, yes, what a glorious time. Tuesday nights on ABC, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Three's Company, and Too Close for Comfort. Tonight's guest is an actress you've seen on programs such as The Love Boat, The Dukes of Hazzard, The A-Team, TJ Hooker, Simon and Simon, Hunter, Fantasy Island, TV's Bloopers and Practical Jokes, The Drew Carey Show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Knight Rider, Full House, but she's best known as Ted Knight's daughter, Sarah, on Too Close for Comfort. She's also a writer and a talk show host and so many other things. The lovely, the talented, and the elusive Lydia Cornell.
I like that.
If only because it's been some time, setting this up, but you've been very, very busy.
Yes, and I'm so right now. The next 2 days are the crunch time for this huge thing I'm launching. I'll tell you. I can't talk about it, but I'll talk about everything else.
Right, because if you talk about it, the 24-hour kill truck will come by from the corporation and take you out.
That's exactly it.
Right. And what a grim way to start off this interview. But speaking of grim,
yeah,
Halloween was just a couple of days ago. You are part of a film that, it's the strangest thing.
What?
I don't know how this movie did when it initially came out back in, I don't know when it was, 1981. I'm talking about Blood Tide.
Oh, Blood Tide.
Right. This movie, I've seen it, and when I mentioned it to people, I said, did you ever see this movie with James Earl Jones and Lydia Cornell gets ripped to pieces? And everybody knows what I'm talking about.
You're kidding.
Everybody has seen this movie.
No, well, it's got a cult reputation for being one of the worst movies ever made, one of the worst horror films ever made.
All right. First of all, let me be in the defense of this movie. First of all, you look fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Not only that, everybody looks fabulous in this movie.
Yeah, we were all really young.
Right. Everybody looks great. You play this sort of, helper / girlfriend.
A smuggling buddy of James Earl Jones. Yeah. Beach bums.
Right.
Oh, I've got a lot to tell you about that movie. It's hysterical stuff. But
well, I'm just out of curiosity, and I do want to get into Too Close for Comfort and other stuff, but I watched it again because now I own it on DVD.
Oh, no.
And
God.
I'm sure it'll be on Blu-ray soon, and eventually it'll be online. But
that's funny.
You get ripped to shreds by this creature, and there's a foot over here and an arm over there. What was it like working with James Earl Jones in this crazy, crazy capacity?
Okay, this movie was so amazing and silly. I mean, first of all, I was flown to the Greek Isles right before I got the series. Actually, right after I got Too Close for Comfort, I got the movie. So it was, I was in town maybe 3 months, got a TV series right away. I was flown to the Greek Isles, and then there was an actor's strike, so we were stuck there. They prolonged my time there, and I was there for 9 weeks, living in this Byzantine island, kind of a Rock of Gibraltar, that was attached by an isthmus, and we lived on we had an old yacht with this salty sea dog from Malta that was the cook and the chef, and all the British actors would fly in. And there was nothing on the island at all but one restaurant and a bunch of donkeys, and they would take us up to the top of this old monastery. And I lived in it was a Byzantine monastery that we were living in. And the hardest part was the drowning scene, because that day they told me to keep my eyes open while salt water was going in and out of my eyeballs, with the sun shining on my face. We took about 40 takes of that, and I had to look with my eyes open in the salt water. It was crazy. And then they wanted me to drown as if I was topless.
Right.
So I could not do any topless scene. I would never do nudity. I had this big thing where I would never do nudity in case of my children one day. And it was just tacky. And plus I was doing an All-American Family TV series starting in the fall. So I figured ABC Network wouldn't let me do it anyway. So I tricked the camera people. First we tried everything. The wardrobe lady had me kneel behind the rocks. We had no dressing rooms outside by the beach. So I was bending down under the rocks, and she was putting zinc oxide all over me. And then bandages. And we figured zinc oxide would be perfect, because there was an underwater camera following me while I was drowning.
Right.
And if I was all white, they could never use the footage. But the first day of shooting, they didn't have the zinc oxide, and I had to go to the DP's cave, the director of photography's cave. He lived in a cave. And I actually went to his cave while they were eating, and I snuck into the cave and got the film and stole it. And I put it in my dressing room, my cave, back in the monastery. And they didn't know I took it. I actually said to the director, I said, I can't let them have the footage. They have naked footage of me swimming nude underneath there. And my manager will kill me. I didn't sign a contract saying that you're allowed to do this. And they had to reshoot all the takes with the zinc oxide. I'm having trouble remembering that.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm surprised at the covert cloak and dagger world of Lydia Cornell.
I know. That was such a blast, though. We were living like, in a tiny village with just nuns and donkeys.
And James Earl Jones, his character in that movie is so mean to you. Was he nice on the set? I'm sure he's playing a part, of course, but
he was playing a drunken Othello type of a vagabond who wanted to be, who'd lost everything in America and came.
Right.
All the ne'er-do-wells and all the people who'd lost everything came to this island. And we were supposed to be boyfriend and girlfriend, and we had a big kissing scene. Mm-hmm. And they cut it out. They said, no, audiences won't accept a biracial, multiracial love affair. And I went, why? What are you, crazy?
We had Star Trek 20 years before. Why not?
Yeah. Then we were going through the Reagan era, the beginning of those decades. So, but I loved it. Oh, he was a blast to work with. He's this iconic figure even back then.
It was very strange because when I first saw it, I was a kid, and I just was like, "That's the voice of Darth Vader," and that's the girl from Too Close for Comfort. What the heck am I watching? And now she just got killed. She was doing aerobics on the beach, and the next thing you know, she's ripped to shreds. But first
of all, no one knew the plot. We couldn't figure out what the movie meant. We couldn't figure out what it was about, and what was the monster? What did it look like? To this day, we have no idea what it means.
And I've seen it now twice. I still have no idea, but I love it, though.
I love it, too. The music was the beautiful music, the opening.
Right, it's very atmospheric.
And by the way, we had a scene on a boat where we were on a speedboat together, and the crew was on the boat with us, 25 crew members and just 4 or 5 actors, right? Mm-hmm. Had to look like we were on there alone. And the sound crew was from Acapulco. The camera crew was from Greece. The actors were American, and the producers were British and Greek. And no one could communicate. It was like the Tower of Babel. So at one point, the Mexican sound man had just finished doing Farrah Fawcett's movie Sunburn, or he was well-known in Mexico. Mm-hmm. He got seasick, and he lost his entire set of false teeth overboard.
Wow.
And the rest of the summer, he had to eat, moussaka with a straw.
No wonder this movie wound up as some sort of surrealist masterpiece.
Thank you.
And it's very famous now.
Oh, I love you saying that.
Everybody I talk to goes, "Oh, I've seen that movie." Yeah, Sarah from
That is weird.
She gets killed. Of course, everybody recognizes you primarily for Too Close for Comfort because it's an interesting show. It was only on for, I guess, about 5 years or so.
Yeah, it was from 80 to 85, and then Ted died.
Right. And then it just lived on in syndication. And it's also one of those shows that frustrates me because only the first 2 seasons of it came out on DVD. And I guess it makes so much money in syndication that there's no reason, I guess, to continue because it's always on.
No, that's not really true.
Oh,
Rhino,
really?
Well, it would make money in syndication, but for some bizarre reason, they held it back for years. It could have been on TV Land. And I don't know what Don Taffner was thinking. Don Taffner also produced Three's Company at the time. And they were scared to death that I would pull a Suzanne Summers early on.
Right.
They just didn't want any actress acting like she was bigger than the show. And I would have done the show for free. I was so in love with playing and doing this art form and, being paid for it was just icing on the cake. But working with Ted Knight and all those great people. But the show, Rhino did the DVD deal. And then they went under. They went out of business.
Oh.
For some reason, they never made another deal with another DVD company, which is really stupid.
Well, it seems to be common because, there's like the Bob Newhart show that came out on DVD, I think the first 3 seasons, and that was it.
Really?
Yeah, and his second show, Newhart, the first season came out, and then that was it.
No way.
So it happens all the time. Now there's hope because there is a company that's based out of New Jersey called Mill Creek Entertainment, and they've been picking up these shows that only had like 2 or 3 seasons released, and the fans are clamoring for the rest of them.
That's so cool. You are a wealth of information that I
have a lot of free time.
I'm thrilled. No, I mean, I'm so happy to hear this because I felt we felt we were the only little orphans in the whole bunch. The only show they never wanted to reproduce the third.
Oh,
fourth, and
no.
fifth.
Your show is one of many.
Wow. I
Believe
knew
me,
that.
if you're a completist in things, because I was anticipating getting the entire show.
Thank you.
And it's the same thing with the Bob Newhart show. I also love that program, and I'm still waiting for that.
Still, you've
So
been waiting a long time.
yes, it happens. It happens. You know.
I have to tell you something last
Sure.
night really quick about Halloween.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you were about to ask me something.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Remember your question, though. I had to do the whole Halloween myself because my son, teenagers are not nice people. He's 17 now. He's an alien, teenage alien. But the doorbell rang at 5 o'clock. I have all the candy ready, and the whole house is decorated outside with the really spooky lawn.
Sure.
With the hatchet man and all the goblins and the graves. And I open the door at 5 o'clock. It's still daylight out. And there are about 10 little munchkins all dressed as fairies and werewolves and
Right.
dragons and bumblebees. And they're little tiny 2-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
And all their parents, a set of parents, are standing behind each kid with their camera ready. And it was the cutest thing. It was like a paparazzi lineup. I opened the door, and they're all flashing pictures. Like, I went, oh, I'm on the red carpet again. It was so cute. It's like everyone's first Halloween.
It's a good thing you didn't have clips from Blood Tide running in the background. That would have scarred them for life.
I know. I do usually put on the whole makeup and the weird ghoulish outfit, but I didn't have time.
The question that I was thinking of, when Too Close for Comfort aired, I guess I should preface this, that I guess it was 1980?
Yeah.
81, somewhere around there?
80.
Okay, in 1980, you probably get this a lot. I was somebody watching that show. You know, when you're about 3 or 4 years old or 5 and you're a guy, well, you wouldn't know this, but, with your son, right? You talk to girls all the time. Hey, Cindy, come over here. We're playing ball. And then somewhere around 10, it's like, I can't talk to Cindy anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say to Cindy.
Right.
Well, around that time, I was in love with everyone that was all over on television, whether it was Daisy Duke or Heather Thomas and the Fall Guy,
She's
across
a friend
the
of mine.
board.
I go to her house every now and then.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
With Too Close for Comfort, it was an odd show for me because I couldn't decide who I liked better. I went back and forth between thinking, well, Sarah's so much fun, but Jackie, Jackie's got a good head on her shoulders.
Yeah.
She's all business. And I went back and forth, like, who do I love more?
Oh, that's so cute. I can't wait to tell Deborah.
It's true.
She's a doll. She's so, you know the weirdest story in the world? My dad was in the shipping industry, and we were living in New York at the time. He was actually in Holland, and his office was in New York. And I was in college, but in Boulder, Colorado. But Deborah, when I go to my audition for Too Close for Comfort, which was a crazy audition, I was like the 400th girl they saw, and it was such a zany audition. I have to tell you a little later. But when we went to the finals, it was like the next day they said, you are the one we want to see at the network tomorrow, and I had to go to the network to meet the big shots and Ted Knight and act it all out again. There was another girl there playing the Deborah part, the Jackie part, and it was her. It was Deborah von Valkenburg. And then she said, your name is interesting. She goes, I worked for someone named that in New York City. And I went, oh. And she said, yeah, he worked in Holland. He lived in Holland. And I sent telexes back and forth. She worked for my father.
Wow.
What a coinkydink.
You really are sisters.
We really are. And then we found out more and more. And then we just finished doing a movie together not long ago. I wrote this hysterically funny, like Sling Blade, a piece of a film that we're going to do later, a big film. And she and I played sisters again, she was my abusive therapist sister. And we got to finish fighting. It was fabulous. Oh, my God.
Now, working with Ted Knight on that show, I've heard that he was very stern, came from the old school.
Yeah.
And how was that? Was that intimidating for you? I mean,
Yes.
you basically were coming out of nowhere, really, into that situation.
He was an icon. I loved him. And then when I worked with him, he was very, he was under a lot of pressure